2020, things settled down a bit. We learned that the world's not going to come to an end because of COVID. This power that we've had has been benevolent. We have not really used it to our advantage or weaponized it. But as soon as Russia invaded the Ukraine, that's what we did. We sanctioned Russia. We threw them off of the SWIFT. And more importantly, the BRICS and the BRICS applicants combined have more economic clout than the U.S. does, at about 35 trillion a year, where the U.S. is about 25 trillion a year. That should be a little higher. And the European Union and Japan are less. So combined, they have more economic clout. Debt in precious metals, where you have a rental property, take a mortgage out on it, get your tenant to service the mortgage, and then use the excess proceeds from the loan to buy precious metals with. When I saw COVID hit in 2020, that's what I did. I took out a loan at 3.5%, bought gold with it, and I've got my tenant paying the rent on the properties that I've borrowed the money against. So they're covering the note, and I've got the precious metals for free, basically. And I can't get debt at that rate now. It's good when the rates are low. So it's a strategy for you to think about if we get into lower rates again. And my tenants are servicing the debt. And the property's going up in value too. So it's a good way to have, and you have liquidity. It's easy to sell. Gold's one of the most liquid things you can have. So in the physical product arena, there's really only 3 products you should consider. The U.S. makes 1 ounce gold and silver eagles. The Royal Canadian Mint makes 1 ounce gold and silver maple leafs. And the Austrian Mint makes gold and silver philharmonics. If they were ice cream, and some of you have come to our booth and heard me say this, it's vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. These are the 3 most popular flavors around the world. These are very widely traded items. They're very competitively priced, dealer to dealer. None of us are getting rich buying and selling these things. We make a really tight market, but they're good for you. And they're good for you because they're easy to sell. You get liquidity with these items. Most of you would think about a bar, a gold bar, as a way to buy gold. And there are bars that you can buy that are made by refineries in Switzerland and in Asia. But we also have a modest but growing problem with Chinese counterfeits, where the market's got stuff coming in from China that's spurious merchandise, and they're counterfeiting everything. Like they counterfeit Gucci bags, they counterfeit Rolex watches, they're counterfeiting precious metals items. The bars are easier for them to pass off as good because the designs on the bars are very plain. All the mints around the world have added intricate little design elements into the striking of those coins when they make them that make it harder for the Chinese to replicate them. A dealer like me, who's been around for a long time, can see a fake a mile off. It'd be hard for you to spot, because I look at this stuff all the time, or we look at this stuff all the time. But for me, it stands out a mile away. And I've seen bars that are pretty good. So I would stay away from bars in gold, because you can have a liquidity problem in the future, and you're not going to have it with these specific products. So this is what a gold eagle looks like. That's what the the Canadian maple leaf looks like, and that's what the Austrian Philharmonic looks like. Those are pictures of it. So that's what I think you should stick with if you're buying and selling physical product. Now let me talk about silver for a minute. The silver chart looks similar to the gold. Now there's a little bit of a caveat here with the U.S. product. The U.S. Mint doesn't make their own blanks, the discs that the silver coins are struck on. So they have to rely on a vendor to provide them for them. They used to have 3 vendors for them. So if there was a lot of demand, they had 3 different entities they could go to get those blanks they strike the coins on. Now they've got 1. And they can only make about 900,000 ounces a month. So when demand ramps up, more than that, they can't meet demand. So we've seen periods of time over the last couple of years where the premiums on silver eagles have gone to $6, $10, even $12, $14 per coin when silver is 25 bucks, dealer to dealer. That's before I even make a small profit and sell them to you. But the Maple Leafs and the Philharmonics have given you an option that would give you a lot more silver for your same dollars at those point in time, because those mints can keep pace. We buy these in 500 coin boxes. We call them monster boxes. That's how they come to us from the mint. That's a US mint monster box of silver eagles. There's 25 tubes of 20 coins each. This is the Royal Canadian Mint's box. They've got 20 tubes of 25 coins each. So that box is a bit more square, a little bit taller. These are like 40-pound boxes of boots. If you had shoes in your closet, a pair of shoes, that box is a little small. If you have a pair of boots, that's about how big these things are. So you can see how storage for silver could be more challenging than storage for gold due to the size nature. Another way to buy silver is in 100-ounce bars. You only pay one manufacturing charge for 100 ounces, where if you're buying 1-ounce coins, there's 100 manufacturing charges for that same 100 ounces. These are more compact. We have one in our showcase at our table. You can see if you'd like. You get a little bit tighter buy-sell spread. So if you just want to buy silver to harness the price and have it physically, 100-ounce bars are a bit more economical way to go. There are reporting requirements when you sell them that we don't have with some of the 1-ounce coins, though, and that's a little bit more complicated. I won't discuss it here. This is our website. This is where we buy and sell. We have live online pricing. All these products are on there if you're interested. One other thing that we do, and I'll mention it, and won't spend very much time on it, is that's our website, what it looks like. Drop-down menu for different choices. We're also vintage coin experts, trading the old gold coins that used to be money. And these coins are limited to what was made back in the day. They're not replaceable like the modern bullion coins are. And we track the premiums and the survival rates on these coins. And there are times when you can buy them when the premium is low and own an ounce of gold that maybe there's 500,000 other known examples of, complete for the entire series, where the US Mint's going to make a couple million gold eagles this year. When demand comes and goes, the premiums can change. So one of the coins we like is a $20 Liberty in mint state 64 condition, which today the premium's about 20%. And you can see in the past it's been as high as 95%, 70%, 60%. This is a way to own physical gold and trade it as an arbitrage and get a premium play that you're not going to get out of modern bullion. This may not be for a lot of you, but it is one of the things we do, and there's an option there if you like the old historical coins. But if you want to learn about physical precious metals, getting old. We have this getting started guide. We've got them on our table and explains all the products. You can come get it and take it with you. And it's just the basics, just like I just went over. I have a YouTube channel if you want to follow me on YouTube, where I talk about what's happening in the markets. I'd love to have you subscribers. There's no obligation on your part, of course. You just see a video you like, watch it, and I'll try and keep you updated on what's happening in the market. So that's my presentation. Thank you for coming. If anyone has any questions, I got a couple minutes. Yes, sir.
My understanding of gold is part of the value is because there's a finite amount of it. You mentioned that U.S. mines are mining it at higher rates. Does that bring down the value at all because more of it's being brought to the surface?
Will higher rates of mining push the gold price down, is your question? I'm repeating it for the recording. There's an argument that we've already passed peak gold. And I heard just the other day that they may have found a big deposit in Uganda that they didn't know was there before. I really think the only way they're going to find enough gold to make a difference is if they can get under the seafloor like they can get under the seafloor today for oil. And until they're able to do that, there's going to be a lot of metal, a lot of resources under the ocean floor, but you got to get to it first, and that's very, very difficult. So I don't think the way the world's appetite is for gold, the way it's coveted outside of this country, if you've had war or a currency fail, you have a gold culture. And that's most of the rest of the world. We just never have had that happen here. So we've never really had a gold culture. And when there's worry in the world, which there really isn't in the US right now, you know, demand tends to be low. It can overwhelm what's out there pretty easily. So I think the answer is we're not going to see enough to really make a difference, especially if central banks keep doing what they're doing. And by default, gold is becoming a world's reserve currency again now. That's what their behavior is telling us. Other questions, sir?
So is there reporting requirements when you sell or trade gold?
Are there reporting requirements when you...
You mentioned about silver.
Yeah, so we do have a reporting requirement. It goes back to 1986. When you sell a dealer like me 25 ounces or more of gold or 1,000 ounces or more of silver in certain products that were deliverable against a COMEX contract of the futures exchange in 1986, specific items, those items are reportable on a 1099-B when you sell them to me. So for example, gold bars are reportable. South African gold Krugerrands are reportable. Canadian gold maple leafs are reportable. US gold eagles were not minted until after this law was passed. Austrian gold philharmonics were not minted until after this law was passed. They're not on the IRS's shopping list. So some items technically are reportable and some are not. And all that means is I don't have to fill out a 1099-B on some while I do on others. You still have to do the right thing as far as reporting your own capital gains, and that's capital gains applicable. What was my other point? Is that the time? Any other questions? We had another one.
I have answered it, but I was going to ask you why the Krugerrand was not on your list of the top three. Because it's pretty wide circulation.
Yeah, they're another. South African 1 ounce gold coin is another great gold coin. It is reportable, and it's a little bit less desirable these days because there's so many other choices. One or two more, sir?
I'm just getting started, gold over the last year buying it. What I find in my area, it's hard to find gold eagles like at local shops and the premiums are high. So I found like Walmart.com is usually the lowest premium to buy gold eagles. But it comes from a couple different firms and they just kind of come to your house. What do you think about people buying direct from Walmart?
Don't.
The second question.
I've seen fake Chinese merchandise on the Walmart shopping website.
Even the eagles.
I haven't seen gold eagles that are bad, but I haven't drilled that down. But as soon as I saw some bad silver coins on their website, they don't know what they're doing.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Go with a reputable dealer.
The second question is, as you start to build as a small-time, buyer, storage. So you get the safe that bolts down to your house somewhere, where you go to safety deposit box because of two things. What do you think is safety deposit box? Well, how would you store it? Where do you start?
Don't store in a safe deposit box. You don't want to have a bank holiday and not have access to your metal. Gold is pretty easy to store. Silver presents a bit more of a challenge for physical silver. There are some privately run, professionally run storage facilities around the country that we recommend. They're kind of hit and miss, and there are not many of them. There's one in Las Vegas that we like. There's one in Delaware that we like. Brinks is in Salt Lake City. You have to work with a specific dealer to get in there. There are some smaller ones regionally. There's one in Dallas. There's one here that we like. You got to be a little careful. I would tend to stick with the bigger facilities that are run by mint distributors or professional entities. And basically what you're paying for is an insurance cost for storage fee for a year. It's not a lot considering what you're getting for your fee, which is usually about 0.5% of value per year. And important, you want to have segregated storage, which means your metal lives on a shelf by itself. If I sell you something, it goes on your shelf under your name. If you have unsegregated storage, whatever that item is, whether it's a gold eagle or a Canadian gold maple leaf, it goes into a pool of other similar maple leafs or eagles. I bought silver eagles in volume from IRA clients that I didn't sell them to, who I've gotten metal back out of an unsegregated account. And some dealers will send in subpar quality material. And I've gotten some of that back. And I paid a premium for this stuff and you sent me some crap. Can you replace it for me? And so it creates a bit of a problem, a little bit of friction. But if you have segregated material and it's yours, you don't have that problem if you got good material to start with, right? We always deliver good material. Why make you unhappy with a delivery you're not going to like? That's the last thing we want to do as a business. So I think that's about all the time I have.
Number. About 330 trillion in real estate. Where's my real estate investors? All right, most of you guys, good. 330 trillion, it's the biggest sector, as you can see. The bond market. The bond market is sort of the global asset market. That's where governments and nations hold their wealth. In the bond market, 300 trillion, real estate's bigger. Money, currencies, dollars, etc., about 120 trillion. Equities, the stock market, public markets, right, 115 trillion. Cars, collectibles, a lot of rich people store their wealth in collectibles, fine art, things like that. Jewelry, about 6 trillion. Art, 18 trillion. Gold, about 16 trillion. Any gold bugs out there? I used to be a gold bug. Now I consider myself a sound money advocate. We'll come back to that. About 16 trillion in gold. And there's this little tiny little piece all the way in the top left-hand corner. You can barely see it. And that's Bitcoin. That little asset that could. 1 trillion right there. When you compare it to the rest of the world, it is just nothing. It's like a speck. It's not even a drop in the ocean. Now, if we break this down, we understand that we have to borrow that money. I'm paying an interest rate. I'm paying 6%. I have to make more than the 6% to make that worth it. That's the hurdle rate. That make sense? So the hurdle rate is the cost of the capital, plus you have to attach a risk premium. What if that piece of equipment doesn't work out? What if my business goes down and I'm stuck with this building? So you have to add the weighted average cost of capital plus a risk premium. That's the number we have to beat. So in our own investing, in our own life, financial life, what's our hurdle rate? Well, the government wants to tell you it's the CPI, about 3%, but that's a lie. The real hurdle rate is the rate of real inflation, which is monetary debasement or monetary expansion. So what we have here is a chart on the right of the M2 money supply. And you can see since July 2019, it's going up like a, not quite a hockey stick, I'm not sure what that shape is. It's averaging 10%. So we want to attach 10% plus the 3% of cost of goods going up, plus remember we have to add a risk premium. I'm putting 2%, it's probably much higher than that. We're in a pretty risky time right now. So let's say it's 15%. So what this means is if your investments aren't making at least 15%, you're actually losing money. Anybody ever seen that number before? What you've been told is you can park it in US Treasuries at 5%, inflation's 3%, you have a 2% spread, you're doing great. It's not true. Sorry to break it to you. But it gets worse. Now, if we look at real estate, everyone's like, oh, real estate's in this big bubble. It's a bigger bubble than it was in 2008. It's ready to crash. Oh my gosh. No, it's not. It's not in a bubble at all.
Right? It's the same thing in the business world. You're going to build a credit score on the business side. I also educate and teach that you should also be setting yourself up with Dun & Bradstreet and start building your Paydex score. If you don't know what that is, I'd be happy to run through that with you. But it is essential to get vendor trade lines. And those are huge accounts you can get that also don't have interest tagged to them because they're net accounts. They're a net 30, 60, 90-day type account. But all of these things are stepping stones you have to do to build all of this up. And the end goal is to get to non-PG, non-recourse commercial lending that's only on the EIN. That way you never have to personally guarantee it. You never have to worry about your personal credit in your business anymore. But you have to do these things to get there. So what does the underwriting department in business credit look at, and why is your credit important to that side, is this little wheel here. If you go pull your credit, depending on what model it is, it's all gonna be different scores. It's never exactly the same. Lenders don't look at it that way. So what they're looking at and what makes your credit score populate for them is your payment history. Obviously you gotta pay on time, right? I mean, you don't have to be perfect, but try to be. Your credit utilization ratio, that's the most important one. So I said earlier, when you use your credit, you penalize. The second you hit 35% of your available credit on your revolving personal credit cards, or even just some revolving personal accounts, you get over 35%, your credit score starts going down. So basically, they will start penalizing you for using the capital that you've been extended on the personal side. So that's a huge piece. That is probably the quickest thing I've seen drop a credit score outside of your big things like bankruptcy and charge-offs and things like that. The length of credit history is super important. So that's why anyone in the personal credit space will tell you, don't close personal accounts unless you have to. Because when you close it, you lose every bit of that history you built. I understand if you don't want to use it anymore. That's okay. This is different for installment loans, because installment loans are supposed to close when you pay them off. This is revolving debt. Even your personal lines of credit, even a HELOC, when you close it, you're losing all the history. So you're gonna take a hit on your credit score just for closing that account. So I always tell people, if you can keep it open, hey, cut up the card and throw it away and let it stay open as long as it can. But after a certain amount of time, it will close naturally. So I always say, put it in a filing cabinet. If you really want to keep it open for a long term and let it sit there, go put gas on it every once in a while. Let it hit the statement. Don't pay off if you're trying to build credit, don't pay off your card or pay a payment prior to the statement dropping, because the credit score does have an effect if you're just paying it. Like if you go get gas and the next week you pay it off but your statement hasn't dropped, you don't really earn anything for doing that. The other thing is timing, understanding when those accounts report to the credit bureau. They do not report on like a first of the month cycle. So you can have 5 different accounts that report on 5 totally different days, and they are a snapshot. So whatever is on your account at that moment is what reports to the actual credit bureau. So understanding and knowing what those dates are, you can kind of time out your payments to make sure that you are showing your payments and seeing that credit line decrease as far as your amount. So if you're a person who actually uses it like a revolving, which is what I do, I charge everything on my credit. I do not use my debit card personally for anything. I love playing point games and getting all the free stuff I can get with my personal cards. I let it hit the statement and then I pay it off the next day. And by doing that, I'm timing it out to where I actually show that I almost never hold a balance on that card. So my utilization always stays super low, even though I'm using it, because I understand the date. And in order to know the date, you have to have a full credit pull from a credit reporting agency that shows you that. And you can see like when it last reported. Typically, it's gonna be every 30 days from the date you opened the account. So knowing that can be really important. Your credit mix, they always want to see installment history, revolving history, mortgages, car loans. Like they want to see that you've had kind of a mixture of accounts and use them all in a good way. Hard inquiries, don't need to worry about soft inquiries. Anyone's pulling a soft pull, doesn't matter, doesn't hurt your score, doesn't do any of that. Hard inquiries do. So I always tell people, if you're gonna go car shopping, do not let the dealership shop your loan, because they are going to pull your credit as many times with as many lenders as they can until they get someone to accept you. That is their only job. And I've seen people get 10 hard inquiries from looking for a car at one dealership. And you can tell the dealership, no, I only want you to run it here. Or you can go ahead of time and go to your bank or go somewhere and get a pre-approval. Because that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna shop your credit. Hard inquiries, on average, are about 10 points a pull. Plus or minus a little bit, depending on what model you're looking at. And it takes about 6 months from the time the hard inquiry hit before you'll start earning any of that back. So just be very careful with your hard inquiries. They're part of life. If you're going to get a mortgage, you got to get a hard inquiry, right? Mortgages, you get the 3-for-1 rule. You can pull it 3 times and it only count as 1 type thing. But being very careful with that. So leveraging your credit score, and all of this is going to round into business, I promise. So making payments consistently, finding out your reporting data, kind of got ahead of myself there, keeping it 30% or lower, and then separating, divorcing your expenses on there. Mixture of accounts, I kind of went over all that. So this is kind of a little graph of like what it costs you to not have good credit, and it does correlate in the business credit space. So, if you're financing a vehicle to business credit, there is business credit cards, that is actually a thing, and you can build huge lines. We have been doing this since 2007 as a company, as a service, and helping businesses get to this point. And we build typically about $250,000 in business credit for each client. I love private lenders. I work with a lot of private lenders. I do a lot of business with private lenders because they are serving this huge chunk of the market that banks are unwilling to serve. Banks are very corporate They're very much there for their own risk assessments for what they're good for. And if you don't fit in their box, they don't lend to you. That's just how the rules work. So private lenders, and even, I call it the Shark Tank, the VC style, there's still a place for it. And so really what I say it boils down to is, what is your appetite for cost of capital? Because cost of capital will always be a thing. You're never gonna get free money unless Uncle Bob dies and left you all of his money. Like, it's not there. So you have to have a cost of capital. But it's a mathematical equation, and you just have to take the time to figure it out. What is it gonna cost? Are there origination fees? Are there points? What's the interest rate? What's the terms? How is it gonna work for you? The thing with private lenders is they tend to be more forgiving. They tend to be more realistic in listening to you as the person and the business owner, and understanding what your vision is, what you're using the money for, and what risk they're willing to take. So it's not about, you might need both. You might need the loans from the bank, you might need the private money, you might need VC, you might need to sell some equity to get there. I think that what should ultimately find out is what's your end goal, and what is that cost gonna be, how to get there. But then also, what is your return? What are you expecting the return to look like? Because if your return is gonna be 40% on the investment and your interest rate is 19, you've made a huge come up. That's still a big number. You still have a huge room there for improvement, right? But if your return's only gonna be 10% and your interest rate is 15%, that's not gonna make sense. That's not a good deal, right? Nothing's set in stone, but you need to look at the end, where the return is, what that cost of capital is, and was there enough there to make you a profit margin to move to the next one, the next deal, the next step, whatever it is that you're doing. So that's kind of how I look at funding in general. Sorry, there's like lines on my phone. So it's really just the mathematical equation of what's gonna actually give you a profit margin that's acceptable to you. And that is all boiled down to your own appetite, whatever that is. A 10% return to one can be huge versus the 40%, because it's all about numbers. So that is my presentation. I do have a team here.
So they say a lot of times you can use a credit card,
Yep.
a business credit card to buy it.
Yes.
How much, I mean, I have good credit, I have a business credit card right now, I've only had it for like a year. I haven't put a lot of money on it, I had a house burned down, put it all in there, I put it all, paid it all back.
Yep.
How can I get cash? Because I talked to my title company, I said, hey, can I use a credit card to buy a piece of land? They said no.
So there's an intermediary. So basically, that was a problem that was presented to us probably 10 years ago. And there was a company we found at the time that was able to do it. And since then, that company had some issues, and we found actually some more reputable companies. So basically, you need somebody who is big enough, that has a merchant account, that's willing to take that risk factor. So Bill.com is a great example of it. Bill, just like it sounds, Bill.com. They're a huge payment processing company. We actually use them as a company to pay out of our bank account. They're partnered with a lot of big lenders. You can actually, as long as it's B2B, so as long as there's a business use case, you can't pay yourself with it, you can't pay your friend with it. B2B is that you can set up your credit cards in the account. You have to have documentation of why you're sending the money, and they will ACH or wire transfer the money over to whoever you need to send it to, as long as it's B2B. And there's no limit, but there is a fee. Nothing's free, I'm not gonna lie. About 2.9% for the amount of money you transfer. Yes, I know.
Bill,
B-I-L-L, Bill.
B-I-L-L.com.
Bluevine has a version of it as well. Bluevine.com has one. Plastique was the company we were using for a long time, but they've just had some internal struggles. Milio does it on the personal. They don't do it for business anymore. But there's more. Those are just the ones that I like.
Another quick question, so I know.
No, you're good.
So let's say I wanna buy a mobile home with a credit card. What's the best, what credit card would you recommend that would give me, most bang for my buck, 0 interest, and maybe points, et cetera?
So everyone we go after has 0% anyways. But I would stick with your bigger banks. They just have the better offers and the better cash back.
Like, what specifically, like.
Chase.
I use Chase
Yep.
Blue, but that's okay.
The Chase Business Blue? Yeah. There's another one too that they have that's pretty good. don't know if I know the name of it. If you come to the table, my sales manager will definitely know the name of it. And then Amex is one of my other favorites. I love them personally as well, but they have a couple of different offers that they have for their business cards that have great cash back and rewards.
Blue, green, which one?
I think it's silver in color. I can like picture it. Again, if you come by the booth, Kevin can give you specifics. We have about 100 different offers in our book because some people didn't have the best relationships with Chase or Amex, so we've got to go to other ways. But those are the two with the best. Bank of America is great too, but you have to have a relationship with them. You have to have like either a good checking account, whether business or personal, or some type of installment loan with them before they'll lend to you. Yes.
What's the top like 3 business credit cards to apply right now?
I would say Chase, Amex, and Truist. If you're in a state that has Truist, Truist was SunTrust and BB&T merged together and became Truist, but it's only in certain states. Outside of them, I do like Bank of America. You just have to have an account with them. Wells Fargo has a decent one. There's a company called FNBO that underwrites for a bunch of different cards. So it's just a matter of what you want and what offers they currently have, because they refresh the offers. So there's times where we get ones that are 22 and 24 months interest free. It's just they don't last for very long. So it depending on the day of the week could be a different one.
So for the EIN number,
Yes.
is there like a limit of how many cards you can apply? Can you apply for like 5 under one EIN?
So there's no limit on how many you can apply for. At some point, they'll just stop lending to you. But we also are because it's personal guaranteed, every time you apply for a business credit card, it's still gonna do a hard inquiry on your credit. So we have a strategy of how to minimize that because you don't. That's why we make sure we look at what cards are gonna be the most likely to get the best approvals for your individual personal profile and your business profile. Because you don't wanna just apply for 15 different offers because now you're gonna have 15 different, hard inquiries and your credit's not gonna look so good. So it's a matter of just figuring out what's best for your profile and narrowing it down. And you can do your own research. This is not something you have to hire a company to do. I'm not suggesting that at all. It's just that sometimes, companies, services like what we do, we've done all the homework. We're constantly in the trenches. We know what those people are looking for. But it's not bad to start with one. It's actually, I have better results with clients that already have like a really good relationship with a business card anyway. But I also have brand new LLCs, people who've never done it before, and I get them $150,000 without really much effort. So, it's knowing how to line up the applications properly.
One last thing,
Yeah.
you didn't mention anything about credit repair. Do you guys offer that too?
Okay, so legally I cannot offer credit repair. However, we decided to open a credit repair company separate because you should always be, as an entrepreneur, you should always be finding solutions to your problems. So the owner of Fund and Grow does own a credit repair company. It's called Kadam. I do have a flyer at the table for that one as well. But I will say with credit repair, the industry is it's rough. It's a rough industry to be in as the employer on that side as well. But it's a long process. So figuring out why do you think you need credit repair, it might be a bigger conversation because you may not need it. It might be that you just need to do some creative ideas to get your credit in a better position. Because listen, back in the day, everyone just filed for bankruptcy, and it probably wasn't the best thing for everybody back then, but that's just what everybody did because it was the hot thing to do. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's putting together a plan and then kind of doing the work, but it's not quick. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? Go ahead.
How do you go about, and I guess how long would it take to get a line of credit that's not like a credit card interest rate where it's like 30%? So something like
2 years in business is required typically for any traditional type of business loan, business line of credit, term loan. To get a really good one, I would say it's 2 years plus about $40,000 a month in gross receipts that you can prove for a 6-month period. So that's typically, because we have a loan department that we have as well, and that's usually where we see the best results. You can go a little like at a year. I don't think I've seen anyone really get one before a year in business. But you can always try. Typically those don't pull your actual credit. They might soft pull, but they're hard pulling, so that side's not as bad. But I think 2 years is usually the better. And again, $40,000 a month in gross receipts is what most of the major lenders want to see for business lines of credit.
So if you have a new LLC for every property, do you just submit all the gross receipts for all your properties?
No. Do you have a holding company?
Right, yes.
I would just apply with the holding company. I wouldn't apply individually, because how long are you holding those properties realistically?
3 to 5 years.
Yeah, so then every 3 to 5 years, those cards are no longer valid, because technically if the business closes, you're not supposed to use them anymore, right? So I would only do the holding company on that one. Anybody else?
So you were saying that when they give you a credit line, usually you recommend for them to max out those credit cards?
Not max out, use aggressively.
Use aggressively. Okay, so how long, like how much should someone be paying off every month so to kind of like not affect
So-
anything?
I say use aggressively, that's usually only when you're trying to get more credit, right? So if you get the credit and you're good, then you just use it as you want, it's not a big deal, you're gonna build the credit naturally. But if you're in a building phase, that's when you wanna be aggressive. You can max them out on the business side, it's not gonna hurt your business profile, but I would wanna know, do you plan to pay it back? Cause I wouldn't want you maxing out without having that plan in place. But also, when I say pay aggressive payments on the other side of that as well. I usually say at least 2 times the minimum that's the least I would do. I would usually try to do 25% of what you owe, and then that way it's paid off within 4 months, say, if that's what you can do. That's for building. So if you're just getting the lines and you're good and you just wanna use them how you need to responsibly to be able to pay them back. But if you're trying to aggressively build the business credit, then you're gonna wanna use it aggressively. But again, have a plan to pay it back. But I would say at least 2 times the minimum payment, just to show that, but I would wanna see more, that's like the minimum that I would do while building. If you're not building, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, and your company, Fund and Grow,
Yes.
has 2 sides, personal and business, or it's mostly just business?
Just business, the only reason we touch the personal is if you need to beef up the personal in order to be ready for the business, that's the only time we do that. Otherwise, we have free education information we give out for the personal side. Because that's just, our goal is to get you business credit, so just if we need to kind of touch that. Sometimes I have people, very successful people, who just don't use credit in their personal life because they use cash for everything, which is great until you need credit. So I've had people come in, like, they literally have no credit cards on their personal. Well, if you don't have any revolving history, the banks on the business side, then you can't leverage it, it's not gonna work. So then what we do is we get them usually just 2 personal credit cards with hopefully really awesome rewards and things like that as well. We have them use them aggressively for 6 months and then go into the business side. That's the only reason we touch that.
Again, so I got this Chase business, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
0% interest, but come October, they're gonna give me the 24%, so I wanna pay it off, I don't care. Okay, so I'm trying to do a strategy to keep building, buying the mobile home, so let's say I buy one with, Amex next, right? It's only good for 1 year, 0 interest, right?
Yep.
Can I, cause I have a friend of mine that's done this, he buys it and he shows me how to do it, so, I don't know the word, so you max out that one, once times 0% interest in, can you put the other credit card on it? What's that word where you?
To transfer or merge it?
Yeah, but what's that called, transfer?
I mean, balance transfer in business is a little bit different than personal, but yes, there are cards that allow you to do it. Now, what is your end game though? Because credit cards should not be your long-term holding for debt.
Right. No,
So it should be a short-term.
So it is short-term, so for me, like, let's say these mobile homes I'm buying, they're like 50,000, 60,000. So I'll pay 30 cash.
Right.
And then I need a little bridge to get me over that time, sometimes it might be more than a year, but I could do it.
Right.
So, you know what I mean, is that possible?
It's possible, but I would say that you need to focus and fast track your way to a traditional business line of credit. There's still gonna be interest, no matter what, you know what I mean? A business line of credit might still have 9, 15% interest, depending on the bank. But you're gonna wanna fast track, because I would not suggest holding debt on business credit for a long period of time. It's just not, it's gonna, the cost of capital. Well, I mean, the cost to capital ratio, what's that return look like, you know, because interest rates on credit cards and the way that it works, you know, as far as how much interest you're gonna charge every month, you need to know that calculation and be able to know how long can you maintain that before it eats into your actual
I'm trying to
profit.
maintain 0.
Right now, yeah, exactly, but
Yeah.
my point is long-term, eventually you'll run out of cards. You'll run out of offers that you can get at the 0%, so there would be an end game that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So I would establish something that's gonna be more long-term, you get there, but that's kind of the point. Business credit should be, in the beginning, it should be building to get to the point of getting traditional loans or business lines of credit to be able to use regular, but you don't wanna get them when you don't have any history, because then you're gonna be in alternate lending space, you're gonna be at probably almost the same interest rate,
And being like a landlord, so I got 13 properties, so I need a good business card where, hey, I'm going to Home Depot, spending $2,000
Ancillary
here,
stuff,
going
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be what that's used for long term, is to cover those costs, especially rainy day costs if something major or catastrophic
So how's
happens.
Bill.com?
Bill.com is the transferring agent,
Um,
meaning that they're gonna take the money off the card and send it over to the closing agency or to the end person you need to pay.
they're gonna make it cash, like a line of credit.
Correct.
right? Oh, okay.
Correct, they're gonna basically convert it like cash.
That's what it was.
Yes, yeah, yes.
You mentioned, the 2 years, the 40,000 in sales, like 480,000 a year on a
No, so
Sale.
40,000
A
gross
month.
receipts a month,
month.
yes.
Yeah, so 480 a year.
Yes,
So-
yes, sorry.
So on a business credit card, is there like a minimum amount that you need to put on there to get a card?
I mean, I would never say that, because that would be not good. No.
Yeah.
So business cards they use projections. They use projected
Oh, okay,
revenue,
okay.
they don't use actual stated
Oh, okay,
revenue.
gotcha.
So basically, there's a formula or a calculation where we ask a bunch of questions to our clients, say, okay, and figure out what do we think your 12-month
it.
projections
Okay,
would
so
be.
it's projections, okay.
It's all projections.
Okay,
There's
that's
no
good.
minimum, but I'm thinking if you put that your projections are 40,000 a year, you're probably not gonna
Yeah.
get a thing.
Yeah.
But also on the other side of that, I've had clients who actually have provable revenue in the millions, and I'm like, well, just so you know, if I write that over to Chase, they're probably gonna ask for verification, because once you get to a certain point, they're not gonna believe just your word on those projections. So when you get to a certain point, you would have to provide documentation, but normally in business credit, you don't have to provide bank statements, you don't have to provide tax returns or any of that. You're leveraging your personal credit instead of that, until you get to the point that you've had a couple of years in business, have the revenue stream that's going. One of the biggest issues is in real estate, it's never just the same every month, right? Because it goes like this. You don't know, you might close 2 deals this month and make a good amount of money, and then you may not close a deal the next month because you're in a transitional phase, right? So the problem is you need 6 months of like steady 40,000 a month in receipts, and that's where that comes.
Saves me 10,000 to 18,000, or another additional, that $46,000 I left into the deal, nets me a 23 to 40% ROI just on the 46 for the taxes. So I'm like, this is cool, because I'm still gonna sell this thing. So that increases my return. So net profit, if I flipped it day 1, would be X. If I kept it day 2, it'll be the other one. Now, for those of you guys that are flipping, you guys might be asking yourself a few questions like, well, I don't have 46 grand. We'll talk about that here in a moment for sure. That bird that I showed you guys, I'm so happy I didn't sell it, because we were totally gonna flip that duplex that I showed you guys that we sold for $630,000 or $640,000 1 or 2 months ago. If I flipped that then, my net would have been 40 grand. That's what I would have made if I flipped it. In our entire business model, we did that shit all day back then when I bought that duplex. 30, 40 grand flips all day, and we were totally gonna flip it. And I was like, let's keep this one. I'm very happy we kept that one, right? So that was an additional from we ended up with $400,000 in value, right? Since owning it. Plus I was getting $1,300 a month cash flow the whole time I owned it, right? Very happy I kept it. That's not gonna happen if I flip it, because I gotta go do that one. So the other way is what my real plan is with these properties. So I can either sell it and get a reduced tax, or I can do a 1031 exchange, right? And take that tax, that $53,000, all of it, and defer it and put it into another property, preferably one that cash flows better. So this is what I'm doing now. This is my entire business mentality right now on these properties. Is how do if I can't get the cash flow of my dreams from that first property, how do I keep it, force appreciation in markets that I like, right? You can do this in the West Coast, East Coast, whatever, right? And then 1031 to something that's maybe better cash flowing if I want to. The thing is that I have a choice. If it's cash flowing something and I don't need to live on the cash flow. For those, how many guys here want to live on cash flow? Absolutely. It is really hard. It is. Like, I have a commercial property, love it to death. I have a handful of these things. I have one that gets about $1,000 a month net cash flow for myself. Love it. Well, guess what? Like 4 months ago, the commercial AC unit that was on the roof went out. How much did that cost me? About $22,000. Great, right? If I was living on that thing, like there goes a year and a half, if not more, of my entire net positive cash flow on that thing. And It has a 3-year history, do that, whatever, right? And so, but if we go back to this, the reality when it comes to any kind of burrs and flipping, it's these two areas here, planning and rehab and construction, that I think is where most of us are limited in our ability to do more. We might be able to find the deals. If we had all the access to funding in the world, in my opinion, in the planning phase, you get really good at scopes of work, budget finishes, onboarding contractors. Those 4 things, if you get really good at, then the rest of it becomes easy. When you do the rehab phase and stuff as well, then you have to get good at these 4 things. So you have planning, right? Plan all that stuff out, and then you have to execute the plan. And then there's not really much you got to do other than quality control on board, making sure you're good with the contractors, paying them, which is more of a pain in the butt, right, than anything else. If you get overwhelmed with it, and change orders. So if you do a really good job of the planning, the rehab is easy. And so we talk a lot about that and other things we do. So if you, Flippers Anonymous, we talk about that stuff all the time. It's $10 right now to join Flippers Anonymous, all right? Just key thing right there. All right. So you can't work on the business. So I'm saying you have to reevaluate your market, you have to reevaluate your strategy, you have to get good at it, consider, so reevaluate that. And always ask, this is what I ask myself every day when we look at properties. When we saw that property I showed you that we're keeping, and I was talking to my buddies that we bought it with, I was like, right, as much as possible. Go back to 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. And yes, I'm gonna wrap up, I see it, don't worry guys, okay? And then I'm not gonna go through each one of these, but these are my final thoughts. The last one that I wanna leave is that last one right there. Never forget, we're investors. We're not contractors, interior designers, marketers, material delivery drivers, superintendents, real estate agents, cash orders. We're not that. It's math. That's what this is, it's math. And we gotta go back to investing. Our entire job is to take $1 and turn it into $2, right? Not get so excited about posting to social media of our nice new cabins. Like, that's not what real estate investing is.
Really stand up. Let's try it one more time. Are you ready? My friend Trey Stone. Yes, you are my.
For the charities that matter to us, I think a lot of people, if you ask yourself a big enough question about if you had all the money in the world, what would you do that's not for you? That's a great question to ask, because when you figure that answer out and what that would take, now you have a higher purpose than just making X number of dollars, which eventually is going to become a hollow motivation. It's not going to keep you going through those down times. You'll quit, you'll move on, you'll do something else. And believe me, in 2008, sir, you said you went through it as well with 7,000 units. A lot of those people did something else, right? But the folks that dug in and said, we're going to figure this out.
Is the new listings coming onto the market. The basin of the sink is the existing inventory on the market. And the drain is how many buyers are buying. Okay, that's the demand or the absorption rate, as they call it, right? How many buyers are buying. So right now, what do we have? We have a faucet that's trickling out water, not much water is coming out, meaning not much new inventory is coming onto the market. Why? Because 132 million people have super cheap mortgages that they don't want to give up. For the first time ever, and I've been saying this for years, people have discovered that the mortgage is an asset, not always considered a liability. It's a huge asset. Okay, then we have the basin of the sink. It's about half full, or depending on how you look at it, if you're a doomer, half empty, okay, whatever. So that's the existing inventory, compared to what? Well, if it was a normal market, the sink would be full. If it was a bad market, where prices were dropping and it was considered a buyer's market, the sink would be overflowing with inventory. Now the drain, what about the drain? Well, sales volume is way down, so the drain is plugged up a little bit. Why? Because prices are high and so are interest rates, right? $100 million keeps going down and inflation pays it off for you. This is what it did for millions of people. Here's the actual numbers. 1972, $1 was $1. 1984, it was 40 cents. 2001, 24 cents. They borrowed 7.37%. So with inflation in new construction, their real interest rate was only 1.06%. But wait, there's more. Remember, interest payments on mortgages are tax deductible. Oh, wait, it gets much better than this. They had a negative interest rate for 3 decades. They lived in a house for free They got paid to live in the house. They got paid to borrow the money. Negative 1.16%. And this is a regular homeowner that lives in the house. Imagine how much better this gets when you rent the house to somebody else and they pay the mortgage for you. It's an amazing time to be alive if you understand how to game the system with lease debt destruction. Anyway, my time is up and I'm probably getting the hook here, so I gotta